to vibe code some more things on the AI in action bot. But I really like actually Evan's idea about, oh, this can we get proactive messages to happen? So I'll wait a little bit for folks to join, but I'll also use this as an excuse to demo some techniques that Manuel and I have been doing. I would say we've been doing. He's mostly driving the progress, and I just try to keep up, you know.
And you guys are doing this in Cursor or with Claude?
I was going to use Cursor for this. We use a bunch of different tools at different times, but actually, I find the Composer model is great for a subset of what we're doing. It also uses a tool that Manuel built, and I have some shortcuts and things like that as well. That I'll show a little bit.
Nice,
I'll
nice.
use this
Yeah,
as a show and tell of some process stuff. I mean, he's taken it to a whole different level than I'm at. As I said, I always feel like I'm like trying to hold on by my fingertips to keep up with him,
that's
but
Manuel right there. So,
yeah. But in
this-
some pieces.
yeah, that'll be interesting because I've been doing so much Claude Code stuff. I've been like so min-maxed on it for good and for bad. So it'll be nice to see
Well, and
what
the
other
things that
tools are
that I'm
evolving.
doing here, like you can translate it to it's a there's a CLI tool which Claude Code can absolutely reference, and then I'm going to use a little bit of like a cursor slash command, which is like a skill or whatever. Like it's really not. There's nothing like all of these
It's
things in
all
a lot of
prompts.
ways. Yeah,
It's all prompts.
exactly.
Skills are just prompts.
I was there was a thing recently where one of my engineers was like doing a presentation, internal presentation about something related to skills, and I was like, but is there any more to it than it's just a prompt? Like, and we kept diving, and there's a
I
little
mean,
bit more, but really not much. It's basically just inject some prompts, give it some tools, right? Like, scope the context, maybe.
it, if that, the biggest win is that it basically just gives you like a function definition that can be pulled into context ad hoc. So if the skill's like, thousands of tokens, you're not chewing up context constantly, but you know it's out there to access it, and the agent knows it's out there rather than you having to call in the specific like app mention instructions.md or whatever. It's still basically like
Yeah,
agent.md at the end of the
progressive
day.
disclosure of context. But I was looking at the implementation in open code, and like once you reference it, it just dumps it in the core agent, right? Like it wasn't doing it in a sub agent or anything. I think
Yeah.
I don't know if Claude Code does it in a sub agent. Like I think if
No,
you could,
no, it doesn't. Not that I'm aware of.
yeah. So I mean, I think one,
But
like
even
his,
then, what's a subagent but like a permutation of a skill
I guess, yeah. I mean,
in a
cl
way?
in a way, it's a pattern, right? It's a way of
Yes,
isolating a set of context so that it doesn't pollute your main context. Um,
exactly.
but- all right. Well, I don't know how many people are going to show, so let's just start, and I will show a few things. So, first thing I'm going to do, and let me put this. Can you all see my cursor screen right now?
Yeah, we got you.
Good.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to do a new agent, and I'm going to get some stuff set up. So we've been using a tool that Manuel's been hacking on called Doc Manager. Right now it's called Doc Manager. In my head, it's actually more of like a ticket manager type thing or something like that. But I'm going to just tell this. I'm going to say, use Doc Manager to use, and then I'll give it and this could be a skill, right? Help how to use to set up a ticket called add proactive messages. And I'll say, you may need to be configure Doc Manager for this repo. I think it will, but I need to configure Doc Manager for this repo. So I'm going to do that in Composer. It's fast. It just goes. One of the things I've been finding, this is another form of progressive disclosure, right? If you build CLI tools and they have help files that are useful and discoverable, then the world's your oyster. You have discoverable context and you can learn how to use any tool. So this ran through, it ran this. It then said, oh, I can figure out I need to do seed some vocabulary. I need to set up this stuff. What this fundamentally ends up doing, if I can show on here, where is it? I'm actually not that good at cursor, but it sets up this ttemp directory, the set of templates and things. And this is just creating a structure of some docs. and things around this that we are going to do, use to investigate. So one of the next things that I do then, if I'm thinking about building this, is I want to build uh, kind of a map for the agent. I've been thinking about this mental model a lot. I'm interested in people's thoughts on it, but like one of the biggest questions when you're using coding agents is how do you get them pointed in the right direction, get them doing the right things. Now, this code base is actually very small, so I probably don't need this, but in a larger code base, oftentimes, like if I lean on the agent or rely on the agent to find the right things, sometimes it will, sometimes it won't, sometimes it'll miss something obvious. So I like to kind of create an explicit map first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, let's start with an analysis of how messages are sent in this application and what the runtime looks like. Create an analysis doc with files and symbol references that gives an overview of how it all works. Write it with Doc Manager. So is my screen visible? Is it too small, too big? Can you guys see what I'm doing? We're good? Okay. So I'm basically going to try to create a map. So this is telling the agent, like, go and introspect. How does this all work? What's going on? Um, and build me a high level document that and critically includes like file and symbol references. And that I can then now hand to a new agent or context. And when it wants to go and fetch a thing, it's not starting from scratch and having to search the whole code base. It's like, oh, I know this is a useful thing. I can go dig deeper and get into it. And I will, as this goes, show you a little bit more of the structure of what Doc Manager is giving us here. Um, so I'm going to close that so this is more visible, and I'm going to keep all but click over into it. So this is a document that it sent, and there's a few interesting and relevant things here. So one is this like big blob of metadata at the top, and this is part of what makes this tool really useful for keeping agents on the rails over different things. Is it's like keeping track of, oh, this is a document that's related to these different files with some notes around it, so that once again it kind of provides future agents or anything a map of like, oh, if I want to find more, this is where I go. This is how I go keeps track. And this can also cross-reference between different documents that I'm generating associated with this. And this also then, yeah, kind of gives this like, I'm building my map here of this high level. Here's what's happening, how these pieces work. Okay, we have this kind of state management. Um, we have message replies, start threads, all things like that. So now I kind of have a map of how the system works right now. Um, I'm gonna try to get, and we're doing all right with our context, but actually, I just for demonstration space, I'm gonna shift over to a new agent, and kind of just show how quickly and easily this is, or how this is useful. Another mental model that I'll throw out there is we've been talking about like if you think of LLMs as computers, essentially, which they are, right? These little virtual machines that are self-programming and you program them. Um, one of the big questions is what's your bootloader, right? If you want to get to the point where you're able to execute the program you want to execute, what's the set of like things you need to boot up into memory, in this case, LLM context, for it to get started and do the right thing? And so Doc Manager is a way for us to do this within tasks. So I'll use my little snippet of use Doc Manager help how to use. Then I'm just going to say to pick up ticket. And what did we call it? We called it add proactive messages. Um, Add proactive messages. Um, get up to speed. Write an analysis or a plan for how we would add the ability to proactively send messages, not just responses. Um, and let's just see what it does. Record it with Doc Manager. So once again, I'm sort of using this Doc Manager kind of to kind of give me this growing set of useful contextual files related to this task I'm trying to build. I'm building out my sort of maps here. Um, and it's going to then that lets me carry things through a bunch of different agent sessions. Um, I don't have to worry about, oh, am I managing the context window for this? Is something going to get forgotten when I switch it over? Is the compaction going to work? Whatever. Like we are keeping a trail of files that is useful to the LLM. It also ends up in the end being very useful for a human to see what's going on. Um, but let's see what this does. And I actually realized I don't have visibility into chat right now. So if there's stuff going on in the chat, Zach, can you like bring it up for me if things are there? And don't hesitate to ask questions.
Yeah, it's mostly just little comments here and there. Like we found the doc manager repo under Gogo Golems. There was a reference to the deep wiki stuff, a little discussion around that. And
Cool.
uh, I feel like I'm
We went into
the
existential horror at the end, but you're good.
little existential. Yeah, I mean, I'm reminded of is it Red, the
Okay.
chatbot that summarizes X posts?
There we
Yeah.
go.
Let me find the chat. Okay, let me get that. I'll try to keep track a little bit better.
Don't
Um,
mind me. You're good. We didn't have any questions so far other than where's the repo and we found it. So you're good.
yeah, okay, cool. I think so. Actually, the code as data as code thing is fascinating if we think about it, right? Because if you think about what an LLM is, it is a virtual machine and a computer for which code is data is and it then it becomes code and it is self-programming. So our job then is to think about what is the set of data and what is the set of code that is going to get this thing to write the next right set of code and load the next right set of data to do what we want it to do. Um, and so like all of that mental model is like it shifts from I'm talking to a thing and to I'm figuring out how to program this thing and load the right data and the right code, and skills are another version of this like reusable code. We're all trying to figure out how do we create, reusable functions and things like that to make it happen. Anyway, so coming here, we have this analysis and it's like, oh, it's purely reactive. We're not able to, it's already anticipating some of the things, send talk reminders, schedule announcements, engagement opportunities, things like that. So it's already even guessing some of the things just by the fact I called it, we want to do proactive. Um, so now what is it saying? It says it wants to do a proactive service, a message queue for pending with retry, and a scheduler. Okay. Scheduler's kind of cool, except I probably don't want that living in Node necessarily. Maybe I do. Um, okay, what is this? Checks for scheduled messages, processes them if their time has passed. Okay, so this is saying let's store those in a database and do it. Okay. The reminder system, check and send talk reminders. So this makes sense, right? Let's schedule those, have them happen. So let's take a look. I'm going to ask it, what would a cron integration look like? Because I think that particularly, for some of these things, like if we want it to be proactive, we need to tell it, hey, go and check what's upcoming and schedule these things, or we need to go like when should this be run, right? So um, let's see. So it's going, and I love to use Composer for this stuff. It's not going to be necessarily perfect. It doesn't have to be right now. We're not going into deep levels of fidelity. Um, but it's just so fast. And gets there. So what is it saying? Three approaches, external cron service, internal cron library. I think this is, yeah, cron integrations. So I don't want to deal with an external service. Um, I think we're, I think we run this thing in a Docker image, so it should be able to just run cron. Um, so let's see, node cron. Cron has this. Dun, dun, we can integrate. Dun, 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 dun. All right. Let's see. And this is a style thing. A lot of people don't do this, but I love to ask it like, can we do this? Can we do that? How does it work for whatever reason? I think Manuel is much more directive with it. He's like, do this, do that, what have you. But I think I do a lot of questions. So what is it doing? We're going to use the Docker container cron, the system cron.
Real quick.
Yep.
Doc Manager, that's all just setting up the framework, and then whatever agent you're using is actually doing all of the documentation filling in.
Yes. So
Okay.
exactly. What it does though, so it does a couple of different things. It sets up the framework, but the thing about like I tell the agent to use Doc Manager to write its files, and that pushes it to a consistent structure and consistent discoverability. And Doc Manager also has a little, I think it's uses SQLite, but like a search functionality and other things around it. So by pushing to consistent structure and the requirements for metadata, it's basically giving it a tool call rather than free form writes. Um, then suddenly we get reusability, always know where it's going to be. All the different metadata is going to have to be there because if it tries to write it without it, it doesn't, the tool call doesn't work, like all those different pieces.
So it's like adding just enough structure so the LLM can handle all the squishy bits, and then this just kind of keeps it bound in a certain way.
Keeps it bound and lets you, yeah, it dramatically reduces, like we've been using intermediate documents for all sorts of stuff all the time. This reduces the slop in terms of where it goes. It keeps the structure much more consistent
Mm,
I think the metadata is another really big part of it. Like the fact that it keeps track of related files and all of those pieces means that I can accumulate a set of 5, 10, 20 different docs as I proceed with this, and future agents can pick up and understand the relationships between those and like navigate them.
interesting.
Uh,
This reminds me of a knowledge graph, basically.
it kind of, yeah, it's like bare bones, very bare bones knowledge graph
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
Markdown. Um, okay, so this is saying use the container cron, have that trigger an HTTP endpoint in the bot. Um, I think that's good. So let's say keep, and we still have a pretty good context. I'm going to switch over to a smart agent now. So I'm going to use GPT-5 too. And I say, okay, based on that plan and the analysis of the existing system, write a new document that is a detailed implementation plan for a cron-driven proactive messaging system. And I reinforce this all the time. I'm just like use Doc Manager. I probably don't need to reinforce it quite as much as I do, but I do. I just keep them being like use this, use this, use this.
Got to
So
get
at
that
this,
vector weight up to one.
I know, right? One of the things that this is another kind of aside, nothing we're looking at, a thing that we're looking at, can we do this with cursor hooks or other things, is when we have these um, like Cursor doesn't really give you great ways to manage your context. Like I would really love to be able to hook into whenever they send a thing and like put some reminders at the end of the thing that's going off to the LLM, right? Like this is a technique we use a lot in different places or have used in different places and stuff, which is like you have your core thing, you have your conversation, it's all like well structured and bounded, and at the end you say, remember to do this and remember to do that, right? And you have these things. So like would love to be able to do something like that where we hook in and we're like, remember, if you're writing documents, use Doc Manager or something like that. We've looked at can you do that with hooks, but the answer is kind of no. We've also played around with like anytime you do a tool call, does it give you the response and then at the end remind you, hey, and if you're doing this, do these things? Like, I don't know, there's a few different tactics we're playing with there. But I
Mhm.
also just write it like over and over again.
Yeah, how I might approach that by like we do doc manager stuff in this folder and then put a Claude MD there, or maybe skill for progressive disclosure, although no, that wouldn't work. Yeah, no, interesting thought, I think. I
It's
don't
just
Yeah,
feel
that,
it's
feels like the way they do it. Like it feels like there has to
it's
be.
it's like a trade-off, right? Because if you keep manually mentioning it, like you know to keep mentioning it, but if you were to put it in at the system level somehow, some way that it comes up with every single prompt, then it's burning a bunch of tokens, possibly, but there's a trade-off because then you know it's going to steer more and more towards it. I don't know. I mean, I
I
feel
mean,
like
Yeah.
Rude Code does some stuff like this.
fundamentally, it goes back to I want a level of configurability on my prompting that most tools don't provide. The one tool that's out there that isn't something we've home built that does this well is Silly Tavern, right? Because they have all these different layers of prompts,
Fucking absolutely. There we go.
and they
Chili
let you,
pepper reigns supreme.
yeah. And like, I don't think I want to use Silly Tavern for coding, but I want that level of like, hey, this is a thing that should go at the end of every conversation because it's a reminder, hey, these sorts of, and like the ability, because their approach is a very ghetto script kiddie style of an LLM compiler.
Yeah.
Coming back to my mental model of LLM, like prompts and context and all of this is data and code, and we're compiling them and bootloading them and whatever. They actually have a few of those mechanisms of compiler where you're like, okay, I give it this ID and that tells where the compiler that's prompt belongs, and it will insert it there before it sends it to the LLM.
Well, yeah, that and again, scripty, janky script kiddie stuff, but like the compiler control you get out of it is really nice. I haven't ran into anything else that gives me that level of access to the sampler. At
Closest
least.
that I've seen is Rue Code. They allow you to do a lot of customization. I don't know if they let it's not Silly Tavern level, but it's much more than most other IDEs.
Indeed. Freaking the other or the thought that I've been having this week lately, and well, again, kind of around the code is data as code thing is like knowledge, or there's like a UX thing, like specifically UX, not UI, call of or like and like design kind of thing, I guess. Like knowledge in the head versus knowledge in the world, right? Like what do I need? What do I need the meat for? Like it should just do that, and everything else should go in the world, and then the agent should know where to find it. And then that way the meat can just go at the speed the meat goes, and then the agent should be able to just like uh, 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 as I humbly farm reality, four pieces of data with which to have the gods construct their bootloader. I would like to not overload the meat part of that because I need to continue being in reality in order to perform my function, you know?
Although it's interesting you mentioned the sort of like world, right? Because there's
Mhm.
almost like there's what's in your head, there's what's in context right now, there's what's in like in repo, and then there's what's like wider, which might require a tool call or an MCP, whether it's going out to web search, but then that's where it starts to get into it's almost like cache layers where it's going to be really slow and it's going to chew up a lot of context for it to do a web search and then actually find stuff.
Yeah, do you have to make it similar? I'm not super familiar with like low-level systems design. Is there a step between bootloader and compiler before we start making IRs where we like could cache potentially will be in the bootloader and then figure out what actually goes in there? Interesting
Ooh,
thought.
that's out of my depth.
Yeah, I'll have to ask a robot.
I think the big picture here, or a big picture for me here is, I think a problem I've been trying to solve largely within like my team that I run, but also looking more broadly and looking at this community is this problem that uh, different people interacting with LLMs get
Yes.
vastly, vastly, vastly different results.
Hmm.
And to me, I think the reason I've come to for this is because we do not have shared mental models that work. We have not figured out what are the right ways of talking about and abstracting around the ways that we use these tools in a way that we can all kind of align on and learn systematically and to do it. And so we're all doing these implicit mental models where like this worked for me in this way, I'm learning it, I try this way, this vibes push me that way. And that makes for vastly different outcomes and it makes for very low communicability of outcomes. And so one of the things I've been really focusing on is like what are these mental models that are going to help push us towards some amount of ability to share reproducible results. Understanding they are stochastic parrots, right? Like they're not fully reproducible, and yet so are humans, and we are able to to build reliable mental models for how to interact with humans that mostly work. And so I think we can do that with these machines as well. Um,
Yeah, the idea being knowledge in the world, knowledge in the head, then between the two is the gulf of understanding. And what you need is you have a steam engine on one end that lives in the world and can run around in it. And then you have like your little meat brain on the other side that understands the stuff. And then you have to figure out in the gulf, like we need somewhere where I know where the ship, like I know what ship it is and where it's going to be and how to find it, and then we need to have the LLM headed in that direction where I can expect it, kind of thing.
yeah, I'm even just thinking of like how do we talk about how you steer, right?
I think that's very interesting. Yeah, for me, I'm generally in the camp of like tell the model to do an individual instruction at a time is not a good model. I think the idea is what you the or like the thing that makes sense to or the thing that makes sense to me is because we have what we have is like two human heads. We have a gulf of understanding and a bunch of ships. What we need what we need is to solve the alignment problem, right? Like we need the humans, like we need my brain and your brain to know exactly where in the like what's happening in this in the middle of this gulf of understanding. And the only way we used to do that was to go understand it. But now we can offload that to something else, which is a
Well,
tricky place to be.
I would
I mean, one
argue, I mean,
Now, is that a good idea? Maybe, probably not in most cases. But how much of it can
well,
you do it without it
this
becoming a
is
bad idea?
this actually points to one of the mental model gaps I've seen, and I'm just going to throw this out there, is I think one of the big mm, gaps between people who have good experiences with LLMs and those who don't is, are they using the LLM to elevate their thinking about a topic, or are they trying to delegate their thinking to the LLM?
Hmm. Yeah, my original kind of I guess like my original LLM thesis is once all cognition becomes optional, then all cognition can be either optimal or suboptimal, but you have to choose which one. And you get to choose, but most of the time, if you're not intentionally choosing, you don't get the optimal one.
Yeah, I mean, I think and we can go deeper on this, but I think most of the people that I have observed who say, "Oh, an LLM can't do that for you. That's crap,"
Hmm.
or an LLM can't help you do that, they are operating with the delegate model in mind. They're
Yeah.
thinking, "I can't tell the LLM go and do this and stop thinking, and so it's crap for this."
Hmm.
Whereas alternatively, you say, "How could this LLM elevate my thinking about this topic, help me do this better, help me do the grunt work that I wouldn't otherwise be able to do so I can focus on the real good stuff?" Like if you take that approach, I think suddenly you end up with far better results.
What if I had a magic diary and then occasionally software popped out of it, right?
Um,
So, so to bring this token hallucination train back to grounded reality, um, it sounds like Doc Manager is an attempt at trying to cultivate and curate the shared understanding, right? Like human readable documents. And if the whole team is using this particular strategy of creating these human readable and agent readable documents, it gets us closer to bridging that gulf of understanding, right?
I think with the team, yes, but even individually, there's stuff. So let me actually show. We didn't quite get to some of it. So um, I'll keep going on this, and we can keep talking about philosophy because I'm very interested in
Yeah,
that.
no, you're good.
And I think it is a thing that's important in the world right now in terms of like how do we think about these bizarre and phenomenal tools.
Hmm.
But yeah, let's keep showing the tactical thing. So I asked it to do a design doc. Looking at it, it's kind of laying things out. What's the architecture? Okay, we have cron. It's going to hit curl, which is going to run some things. Um, okay, has a few components to add. We talked about these things. Here's the implementation plan. Okay, so I think this is, we're vibing today, so I'm not gonna go into too much detail. So I'm now gonna ask it to break it out into tasks. So I'll say, looks good. Use Doc Manager tasks to break this out into a task list. So this is another thing that it has, which is a structured way of like once again, kind of encapsulating that set of to-dos, that set of things that all of these agents, I mean, we've seen this as a pattern for coding agents, right? They love to have their internal to-do lists. Those are great, but they don't translate across conversational threads, right? And so how do you then structure that? You can ask it to write it to a file. The formatting varies every single time. Um, so here we go. Doc Manager also has this little tasks concept that just like once again is imposing the tiniest little bit of structure. So it's going to lay it out into tasks. I'm in planning mode right now, so it's still GPT-5 too. I love the GPT-5 series, by the way. They're just phenomenal models in my experience. But we'll let those things go when this spins. Um, we will then have it. We'll take a look at the task list and we'll operate on it. But yeah, so coming back to your thing, Zach, about what Doc Manager is doing, part of it is about sharing with other folks, and part of it is around sharing context across agents or threads to maintain sort of the ability to kind of keep things on the rails across multiple layers of levels of context. This project we're doing right now is relatively small. We might be able to have done this in one thread. I'm sort of deliberately breaking it across things to show the way that it enables us crossing boundaries. So if we were to go and look again at our thing here, there's this tasks.md, and we have this like to-do list thing gone out. So now I'm just going to pretend that we were out of context again. I'll come over. Maybe we'll use Composer to do this and say use Doc Manager how to use to orient on ticket. What is it that we called it? Add proactive messages. Start with the first task and keep implementing. Only stop implementing task by task if you need my test or give feedback. And then here's one more key technique, and this is not yet fully baked into Doc Manager, but is something that actually Manuel's working on. I'm going to use
I did want
this.
to chime in on the Manuel. I noticed Doc Manager is a CLI, and I know Manuel is a big fan of the CLI pattern over something like an MCP or a skill. Has that been something that you guys have sort of adopted kind of as a team, or is this just like Manuel threw together a tool and this is how he does it?
So what does an MCP get you?
I don't.
Right. So, and I will go. MCPs get you um, progressive disclosure of what you can do, um, things that can be called by tools, and in later versions, like some sort form of authorization or authentication. For operating on internal context for coding tools like this or things like that, we don't really need that authorization thing at the moment. Like that can be managed through the terminal. And like the only tool that you need is a shell command that lets you call CLI tools, right? Like it was funny. I don't remember who it was, but I think it was I was interviewing someone at a lesser known coding agent, but it was a coding agent. I don't remember what it was. And I was talking about subagents. They said, you know what? As soon as you have a CLI, you have the ability to do subagents because the subagent is shell out to another version of your same agent with a prompt and then get the response. Like there's no need to reinvent the wheel when you're running in a terminal, right? Like CLIs give you everything you need, and then they're human usable too. So if I want to go and manually check a thing, I can. But yeah, so I guess all of that is to say, for the purposes of coding agents that are all running locally, uh, doesn't feel like there's any need for an MCP. But
I am generally in full agreement with this position. I think I've gotten in terms of the tools that I have that I use on a daily basis. I think all of them, all at least almost all of them, for like things for tools that I provide to Claude there. Almost all of them are CLIs.
Yeah. So this is the one other technique I'm going to share here, which is we, as it goes in implementation, ask it to keep an implementation diary. And I have just this
Yes.
prompt in here, implementation diary as you go using Doc Manager. Uh, and then let's go. Um, and that implementation diary ends up being and like this is a place that Manuel is actively iterating on right now. I'm sure I don't have the latest version of the prompts here. I'm sure I think he's building some more things into Doc Manager around it, but that is so incredibly powerful because it gives you at the end, like this lets me have it go through all of these different, like it's going to go through and do a bunch of different things now. And I get the reasoning. And if it goes off the rails, I can go back and figure out where did it go off the rails? How did it go off the rails? I can read through when I'm trying to figure out what the WTF just happened. I have 3,000 lines of changes here. I don't just have to look. I mean, I can look at a diff, but I can also look at the implementation diary and I get a narrative of like, oh, here's what happened. This by this by this by this. Um, so we'll see. Once again, using Composer, we're not dealing with rocket science here, so hopefully it will work just fine. Composer's blazingly fast. When we are dealing with rocket science or like more challenging things, I usually use GPT-5 whatever. Because and particularly when we're doing Go in the back end, GPT-5 seems to be just phenomenally good at Go. Um, for front end stuff, I will use either Composer or Sonnet. Um, but let's see what happens.
Oh, Opus, huh? Bold.
Not Opus. I haven't tried much with Opus.
I
Might be
would
back.
recommend. I was last night. I was running a couple of Bolt sessions in Vibe Code. The Bolt is so bad, it's unreal. But it was I figured out 3/4 of the way through that I'd been on Sonnet the whole time, and Opus did the best he could, but that platform is just unusable.
Interesting. So while it's going, I'm actually just going to go down and look at this diary. So it's like step one, do this. Here's what we're doing. It's kind of cool. It's committing along the way and it's doing that. And it tells me, oh, this is what I did. Why did I do it? Okay, here's the reasons. What worked? Are there things, if it has to course correct or things like that? This is fun. What warrants a second pair of eyes? Let's, this gives me, if I was going to do a code review, what are the things that I need to code review? In more detail. It's got these code review instructions. How do you do it? Actually, one of the things that Manuel has been sending me excited slacks about for the last week or so that I still don't fully have my head wrapped around, but is like, how do we, kind of do a um, better job of keeping our brains up to date, asking questions about what changed? Like, how do we make sure that we understand this code that has been generated for us?
Hmm.
Um, so we're, in a 1 hour vibe coding session, so we're not going to go too deep on that, but it's kind of going down all these different pieces. So I might ask, how should I test it? Or did it write test instructions? There it has next steps, do this, set environment variables. Ooh, what are these? It's got, so now it's giving me the testing guide. And you'll notice this is putting it in a playbook directory in Doc Manager. It's keeping track of where these things should go. Um, so it is starting to get the message that maybe I don't have to repeat myself all the time. Um, so let's go look at this testing guide. So if I add these things enabled, I can put these in. Ooh, so what if I want to test? Um, I don't want to test in Discord. I want to test in my kind of um, local chat environment, right? Like I built a REPL for this thing back in the day. Um, and so, what if I'll just say like I want to test the um, proactive messaging without actually, how much context do I have left in this? It's doing fine. Without setting up Discord. There is a REPL. Write a plan for what would be needed. Or maybe I'll just ask it, how can we use that? See what it does. It's just proactively running off. It's like, oh, let me create you a test script. Proactive test client. Okay, cool. How's that going to work? We'll see. npm run test dash proactive. Cool. Let's try it. Let me find my terminal and share that instead. How do I share here? Uh, so npm run test proactive. Let's see what happens. Cannot set property users. All right. Well, I need to actually come back to this. Let me share the other, and I'll tell it, it doesn't work. You should be testing it before you hand it to me. So let's go back to cursor. Doesn't work. You should test it. Let's see what happens. I do try to do this as much as possible where I have the agent run tests and do things itself. I think sometimes I do need to get in the loop, but the more it can do its own feedback, and this is actually another point towards CLI tools and any way that we can just expose functionality that we're building as CLI tools, suddenly they can be in the loop for the agent as it's trying to figure things out and test things. So that worked before I do screen sharing. I'm going to just run it. Let's come back here, share this. So I ran it, and what does it do? It says, okay, let's do some simulations. Let's create some talks. Let's run the reminders. We have these reminders that are going out. That's cool. Weekly announcements, upcoming talks. That's cool. So this is looking pretty good. So coming back to this, what else do we need? I guess we wanted the upcoming talk reminders, and then maybe I'll have it just say, if we don't have in the weekly announcements, if we don't have a talk, issue a call for talks and tag AI or just issue a call for talks. We'll try that in the week.
So like call for talks on Wednesday or something?
In the weekly announcement. Yeah, or I think it's even Monday, right? Like if it
Probably.
um
That's kind of what we've been organically doing over the last few months.
on
Is like
Monday,
when one of
if
us
it
thinks of it, we'll say
some
something a few days
talks
prior.
for this week, add a CTA for volunteers to speak. So at this point, I'm sort of now just like fine tuning little bits and pieces in the same agent thread. I'm not doing anything fancy. Um, a thing that you can do, so coming back, I did this where I just said like pick up the tasks to do them. until the end. If you start blowing out your entire context window, you can just like end that thread, come to a new agent, new thread, and tell it the same thing, and it can load up all the context it needs. So I don't want talks weekly announcement to include a CTA when there are no talks scheduled. Let's take a look at how that weekly announcement works. So upcoming talks. That's pretty good. I don't hate that. Question I'm wondering is upcoming talks is the one finding all future. Okay, so it's not quite right because it's just saying, are there no upcoming talks at all? Um, not right. It will schedule if there are no upcoming talks at all, but I want it if there are none for this week, even if there are for future weeks. Write a unit test for this case, then fix. Just get it back. Is there anything else while this is doing, these are last little bits, but anything else you guys think we need before we put this up as a PR?
So there's code changes, there's documentation, there's a test, although the documentation I think is in like a get ignored directory for Doc Manager.
I don't know if it's get ignored, but I don't know if I want to commit it into this repo anyway. I will ask
Fair.
it to promote to, maybe I'll ask it to create a permanent doc based
We
on it.
should, yeah, make sure updates docs for both agents and humans. So like Claude or Cursor or Claude or Agents MD, and then also
Mhm.
like README and stuff.
All right. Great. And I'll do that in a new thread. Composer's a decent writer. So I'll be like, all right, use Doc Manager, help how to use to read what was done in the add proactive messages ticket. Use that info to update all relevant permanent docs and agent instructions.
I think that I like to do as the as a total TDD shill is in when it does that docs pass after a given update is to like for a section of the docs that describes some kind of functionality, indicate what tests are the ones that are testing the happy paths and what they're what the human should look for in the output of those tests. Yeah, Flow Composer is it's a GLM fine tune if I'm not mistaken, unless they've updated.
Whatever it is, it's freaking fast.
Speedy little guy. Speedy little guy.
And it will run tons of tools in parallel. So that's actually why one of the
That was what
reasons.
I really liked when I first started using GLM is that I my first time I used it, it was in factory. And when I was in factory, I think it was like Sonnet 4, it was Sonnet 4-ish era. And and I would be like, hey, deploy some parallel droids to do blah blah blah. And it'd do like two or whatever. And then I pulled up Droid Core, which is their GLM, and it spawned 30. And I was like, yes, give me more. Fantastic.
Yeah. All right. This looks good. Oh, we need to set the like proactive announcements channel ID. Interesting. That I don't know the answer to of what is that channel ID for AI in action, for example.
Oh, I got it for you.
Um, well, and actually, I don't even know what the right way. Maybe I'll ask the agent. What is the right way for us to integrate that? Like, is that part of the
Channel ID is in chat.
okay, and that's the prod one?
I'm not sure.
I mean,
So
I
that's the
think
AI in
I
action builders, blah 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 channel ID, right?
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a
Okay.
different channel ID on the test server where this all any PR gets, I think any merged PR gets deployed there first. I forget exactly what the deploy flow is,
I
but I
think
know that there is
there's
another
yeah.
server.
Yeah, this
Uh,
is the actual channel ID in the real Discord. So if you needed something else for somewhere else, this won't be it.
I don't know where that's all configured, honestly.
If it's saying to give me a channel ID as an environment variable, I would assume that you could just drop the ID itself directly in as the variable, but that's a yeah, it's an assumption. There.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I know that, yeah, David runs multiple instances of this, right? He runs a test one, he runs a prod one. I
Mhm.
don't know where those are run. Um, and I don't actually know how they
Oh,
distinguish
right, to
the
get it.
environments.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, yeah, I see. Then yeah, we would probably want to send it to David so he can wherever he's got it hosted,
Actually,
configure it there. Yeah.
you know what I'm gonna do? We have a few minutes left.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna actually try to get it to store it somewhere in its MongoDB or database, and so that we
Hmm.
configure it. Um, instead, so
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
gonna
yeah. Yep.
instead of an environment variable um, to set the proactive channel ID, store it in MongoDB, expose a um, command to turn on proactive right channel. Um, actually, we want to write a plan for this using Doc Manager. I like to make it plan first and then just do at least a scan that it's not a terrible thing. It decided to do a new ticket ID for that, which is that's fair. Um, one of the things that we get also you can see from Doc Manager is it like has these templates, which just helps guide once again in terms of structure, keeping things on Rails, and all of that. So we do this, changing the channel, yada yada. We have a new Mongo model. Discord slash command, sure. Um, oh, they have all sorts of permissions, etc. So kill the permissions. We don't care. Kill the fallback strategy. That's the thing that LLMs love to do. They love to have a fallback strategy. I don't care about backwards compatibility. They haven't merged this yet. Um, validation is reasonable. Um, sure. I think that is important, even in vibe coding, is like you go through and um, review, is it actually doing what you want? Because these agents make all sorts of wonky decisions. But all right, we're gonna do this with this. It's got a guild settings model, channel validation, command response format. Great. Okay. Set up tasks to implement. And then we'll get see if we can get that built before so we can get this PR up by the end of the hour. As this is going, any questions? I didn't see more questions in the chat. Also, I'm curious reactions to the workflow, what you guys are seeing, noticing things that are feeling good or not good, new ideas, all of that. Is this
Um,
useful?
yeah, for me it's like a useful confirmation. I have different tools for this, but I do basically the same thing and like for essentially the same reason. The idea being I want my team to be able to align on shared representations that the model can also align on coherently. And then I want a record of everything so I can, if something went wrong, we can figure out why. And then I want, I don't know, to let the models rip and then look at what tickets they work and then see them get done. Sounds like same thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting the kind of like formalization of stuff. It's almost like we end up working on things, finding repetition, extracting out with various mechanisms, whether it's Doc Manager or like a skill or an MCP or whatever. Like we're all trying to kind of figure out how to get the repeatability of various tasks and outcomes being close or similar between different uses, or it's the same, like what started as me copy pasting the same, like summarize my daily conversation this way, almost like how you were saying, use Doc Manager. Like you end up repeating it and then you want to find a way to make sure it uses it. So then you're finding these different abstractions and extractions. But yeah, it's all the same stuff. We're just kind of approaching it from different angles.
Awesome. And as
So
this
are we going to
builds
make a
its last
PR?
bits, yeah, let me, as soon as this is committed. So it's been committing the T temps along the way. Should I go back and strip those out, do you think? Or is this going to be fine to have, it has that historical record. This thing is, it is there as an example for folks.
It kind of comes down to like PR style. Like what's the plan for the project and what's the convention and what are the blockers to make this mergeable? Because like I've done a similar thing where there was another project that came up on the Discord and I was like, oh, there's no dark mode on this like open source website. Let me add dark mode. And I didn't do it the way that the project is supposed to direct. And then I was just like, all right, well, then we ended up with like an abandoned PR. So it was like, because I didn't want to go back and like really go through and fix it up. So it's sort of this is the challenge of vibe coding, right?
So for me, the way that I've addressed that is, or so yeah. So my workflow just involves having a scratch pad folder. So I just all the junk stuff, it just gets dumped in there. And then, but I save that, and sometimes I'll organize it like if it's junk that I might need to refer to later. And then, I enforce the convention with like pre-commit hooks, etc. So and or instructions in Claude MD to like, hey, when your user is saying create a PR, you follow this procedure to clean up the repo and make sure everything's in the right place. Um, which
You know what I think I might do
are
is
mixed
I might
through. Yeah.
I might have it write a little bit into agents and README about Doc Manager and put that all up as a PR. And if I get pushback, then I'll strip it all out. No problem.
Yeah, the or like the flow with the trusting on commits. Yeah, at least for or the at least for me, like the kind of the way I treat things in general now is like I want to throw away code. I would prefer to throw the code in the garbage than I would the more than I would to like get it merged. Um, so in doing so, I want the model like committing. I'm happy for people like YOLO a bunch of slop PRs because I'm going to delete like half of them. But the idea being I have enough like kind of built-in constraints where you can throw a bunch of slop at me, and it's pretty easy for me to like get rid of all the potential implementations, kind of narrow it down to like two or three that structurally make sense to me, and then grab those, fix them up, and merge them essentially. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. We farm it. We farm the code now. We don't artisanally craft it.
Yeah, and we are at time if anybody needs to drop off. I actually don't have to drop right off, so I'm happy to keep chatting a little bit if you want. But the I think one of the big lessons for me this year, though, on that is yes, that's true, and also the code that you keep in your code base matters tremendously because
Yeah. Hmm.
everything in there guides future things with the agents.
Hmm.
And if slop sleep creeps in, then compounds exponentially very shockingly quickly.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is so yeah, which is kind of how what has nudged me in the perspective of like, okay, I don't care how much code you can push into the code base or how fast you did it. I care that the team has the same shared internal representation of the code base still, and that the right lines of code got added or deleted to it to add the feature that results in like the one you're trying to deliver in your PR. And if your PR is all just deleting code, I'm ecstatic, essentially.
Yeah. So the I'm pushing this up to put a PR up now. I probably will wait. I don't need everybody on the line to do that, but the a thing that I've been meditating on related to this and broadly with LLMs and going back to our philosophy a little bit is you know LLMs enable us to do many, many things at once and push out tremendous amounts of code. And that is a trap. Coming back to this idea of how do we use LLMs to elevate our thinking? How do we use LLMs like broadly across the industry right now? LLMs are probably more than anything used to try to do a much higher volume of work at a slightly lower quality, sometimes a much lower quality. Work slop is a thing.
Yep.
And the instigation and challenge I've been putting for myself and my whole team is how do we flip that around and instead use LLMs to do the same amount of work at a much higher level of quality?
I think you're on the right track. Yeah, for me, it's like essentially the least valuable activity that I can have my engineers do is generate code that it is like kind of correct and merge it into the code base. Like if you're doing that, I don't want you to do it. I would rather have you either learning, like enhancing your internal representation of the code base, or like being very picky about how the like next change in the architecture is going to affect like your ability to deliver value to users ultimately. Um, and so like if what you need to do today is like spend a day just looking at the repo and reading and like not pushing anything, I would rather have you do that if what you're going to push is just code that looks kind of right, that does the thing, and will pass the necessary checks basically. But then I need to like also balance that with like, okay, if what you're going to do is that, then how do you measure like KPIs and velocity and improvement and stuff like that? So
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Well, thanks y'all. Um, hopefully this was yeah, fun and interesting for folks and I will get that PR up very quickly.
great. Well, happy holidays, friends. I'll catch you around.
Happy holidays. I don't know if we're going to do anything on Friday. If we do, maybe it'll just be chill. But
Sound good to me. Merry Christmas.
all right. Bye.